What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TheSlamDuncan YouTube channel. New background, as you can see. School has started, as you can probably tell, and I am back in school. So, new background, new room. I apologize if it's echoey. So far, when I'm looking over here and looking at quality, it looks pretty okay with my camera and everything, but it is echoey in here, and I do apologize about that. So just bear with me. But we got some Bulls news today, as we are 3 weeks before really training camp starts, I think. And then, we're basically a month away, probably a little bit less than a month away before the first preseason game for the Bulls. But we have 3 moves made by the Bulls today. Could be more after I make this video and upload it. So if, there's another move made, who knows? I won't get to that until later. But right now, I want to talk about Stanley Johnson, Alize Johnson, or Alize, I'm not sure how exactly you pronounce it. I've looked it up, but I think it's Alize Johnson, and then Matt Thomas. I want to talk about these 3 moves, talk about how the Bulls have completely finished their roster, and then look forward into, rotations and stuff like that. But before we get into all of it, though, make sure you hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Let's get into this. I do want to kind of talk about the more important and impactful moves, which is Stanley Johnson and Alize Johnson. Because they're definitely, more impactful. As Matt Thomas, I'm going to guess, is probably going to be going on to a 2-way deal, potentially just a training camp deal. But let's start with both Johnson players here. Stanley Johnson was the first move today by the Bulls, and we don't know currently the details of a contract, but I'm going to guess it's not that big, as the Bulls currently, they're very much over the cap. They're sneaking into that luxury tax area. They're not quite there. We do want to stay under the luxury tax for this season, because next season, we're probably going to be in the luxury tax, hence the Levine extension, if we get to re-sign him. So, right now, I'm going to guess this is probably a very small deal for Stanley Johnson, probably a 1-year deal, maybe a team option after that, or maybe second year non-guaranteed. But Stanley Johnson, I will kind of say overall for his career, when you look at where he was drafted, look at his time on the Pistons and everything, he has overall probably been not that good, has not lived up to expectations for his career. But the thing that he does bring is defense. He is a very solid defender. He's about 6'6", 6'7", can guard multiple positions, has a very big wingspan. The thing that does kind of, one of the things that is a disappointment for Stanley Johnson is his shooting. He has not really become that consistent of a shooter. I have seen him, have some games where he does shoot very well, especially in catch and shoot situations, but he's just not that consistent. But as the Bulls do look to figure out their forward, depth and figure out their rotations, this could be a guy that could be fighting for rotational minutes, and he's a very good option in case someone does get injured. So I like this move by Karnisovas, even though we don't know the details of the contract yet. But Stanley Johnson can definitely play the 3 or the 4, and he brings the defensive intensity that the Bulls are definitely looking for. But I want to talk about him a little bit later when we start talking about rotation, right? So Stanley Johnson, welcome to Chicago. Hope we get to see him play well here. Next move is Alize Johnson, or Alize. I'm sorry, I don't know, unfortunately. But he signed a 2-year, $3.6 million deal with the Bulls. As you can see with what was just said here, the Bulls definitely needed power forward depth. And this is, what Johnson's going to come in and do. But just before this was announced, Johnson was waived by the Brooklyn Nets. And this is obviously, because the Brooklyn Nets is bringing LaMarcus Aldridge back. They're going to, they're bringing Blake Griffin back. The Brooklyn Nets need to cut as much salary as possible, hence, clear Johnson, right? But this is a very big opportunity for Johnson, because he can definitely come in and be the backup power forward on this roster / center. I definitely think he is big enough to play the center position if necessary, but Tony Bradley is here, and I do expect Tony Bradley to get minutes. But Alize Johnson, he's okay. I think he is a very decent paint protector. He's definitely going to be rebounding the ball. I don't know much about his scoring, unfortunately, but I have seen him play, and he's a very solid option for this Bulls team. Now, however, with both the Johnson sign, Stanley Johnson and Alize Johnson here, this is, everyone's screaming for, before Paul Millsap signed with the Nets, and then LaMarcus Aldridge went back to the Brooklyn Nets, the Bulls were like, oh, we need a power forward desperately. Or specifically Bulls fans were like, we need a power forward, a backup power forward desperately. Everyone wanted Paul Millsap. That did not happen, unfortunately. And I did not expect that to happen, actually. Even though it's the Bulls were on his radar. I just did not expect it, especially for him, going to age 37, I believe. I expected him to go to a contender, and he did. The Bulls are not a contender, but they do happen. I hope and I pray to God that they're going to be a playoff team. But even with both Johnson's signings here today, it does give the Bulls depth. However, I do not think that the Bulls are going to be probably playing either of these guys like consistently in the rotation. Like, I don't expect either Johnson players to be like 100% in the rotation as much as possible every single game. You're probably going to see Billy Donovan kind of, rotate some guys out. Maybe one's hot, maybe, you roll with them, right? But you're also probably going to see, some matchups. Like, Alize Johnson is definitely bigger than Stanley Johnson. So, like, if you're playing a bigger team, you could definitely throw Alize Johnson out there instead of Stanley Johnson. But I honestly do believe that the Bulls are going to probably be rolling with Patrick Williams and DeMar DeRozan at the 4 position. If you do not know, DeMar DeRozan played 68% of his minutes at the power forward position last season with the Spurs. The Spurs definitely played a very small lineup. We had like Keldon Johnson, who was considered a forward, but Keldon Johnson 6'5". And I love Keldon Johnson, but, we're talking about not that big of a guy, and he's also pretty skinny, right? So the Spurs put DeMar DeRozan, he was technically labeled as the 4. But with this Bulls team, everybody on this Bulls team in the starting lineup is 6'6" or taller, which is great. The Bulls have a bunch of length, and, sliding DeMar DeRozan down to that 4 spot, I honestly don't see that as an issue, especially if we decide to go 3-guard lineups with, Levine, Caruso, Ball, and 1, 2, 3, right? That does not seem like an issue at all. So I honestly do expect the Bulls to have Patrick Williams to start at the 4, and then DeRozan probably taking the rest of the power forward power forward minutes for the Bulls, as I do expect DeMar DeRozan to be the leader of the second unit. I don't really think that you're going to see Levine and DeRozan, share a lot of time together. You're going to see them play together, in crunch time, but you're going to see, at least one of them on the court at all times, because I do think the Bulls have that luxury now where you can have 2 dynamic scorers on the court at all times. DeMar DeRozan has had that role of being in charge of the second unit before, especially with the Spurs. So I expect that to be who takes up the backup power forward minutes for the Bulls this season. The other option, I honestly do think Derrick Jones Jr. is probably, if you decide not to use DeRozan for like when Patrick Williams is not on the court for power forward, I expect Derrick Jones Jr. to kind of take those minutes, because he is, I think, a little bit better of a shooter than Stanley Johnson currently, and also I think he is just as versatile as Stanley Johnson defensively. But that's just my thoughts right now with the rotation and both Johnson signings. But I do like these signings because, one, they're cheap, but number two, the Bulls did need depth, and both Stanley Johnson and Alize Johnson fill in for depth at the forward positions, which is really good to see. Now, last but not least, we have to talk about Matt Thomas. If you do not know who Matt Thomas is, just think shooter. He is a very, very good shooter. He is from Illinois, but he played for the Toronto Raptors last season. But Matt Thomas is basically just a shooter. He can absolutely light it up from long range, and I've seen him do it at like an incredible rate before. Like, he can catch fire very quickly, but he is also very young. If you look at how many years he's had in the league, he's only had 2. So this is going to be his 3rd year in the league coming up, and it's we do not know what type of deal he has signed. So it says it's been reported that the Bulls signed Matt Thomas, but we do not know what type of deal it is. It could definitely be a 2-way deal. A lot of people are saying that. It could just be a training camp deal. It could be a non-guaranteed deal, as the Bulls, with both Johnson signings today, have officially filled out their 15-man roster. Devon Dotson has taken up one of the 2-way contracts. Matt Thomas might take up the second one. And this is a very good move, again, by Karnisovas, because a lot of people, if you look right now, with both Johnson signings that just happened and all the other moves that were made, especially the DeMar DeRozan signing, a lot of people are like, oh my god, the Bulls don't have shooting, which is not true at all. I mean, Lonzo Ball is absolutely a 3-point shooter, but he's mostly a catch-and-shoot guy. Zach LaVine is one of the best shooters in the league. If you look at true shooting, he is by far one of the best shooters in the league. Vucevic at center is a great shooter. Patrick Williams, is, as we saw in Summer League, is definitely working on his 3-point game. And now Alex Caruso comes in, and he shot basically 40% from 3-point range, right? So we have shooters on this roster. I'm not actually really worried about the shooting at all. Before the Vucevic trade, there was some terrible shooting on this Bulls team last season. But Karnisovas has completely turned that around, and now this Bulls team is looking a lot better. Matt Thomas is probably not going to have a role on this team at all. Expect him to get some preseason minutes, but I don't really expect him to get many minutes in rotation. But, who knows what's going to happen, especially with Kobe White right now, injured, just had surgery. Hopefully Kobe White can be, maybe not right at the start of the season, but, quickly after that. But, who knows, man. Things happen in the NBA. COVID is still a thing. Injuries still happen. Hopefully injuries don't happen. But if injuries do happen, Matt Thomas is a pretty solid option. And if it's a two-way deal, he has 45 days up with the NBA team. So it's a pretty solid deal overall, I think. And if he is on a two-way deal, you get to see him play for the Windy City Bulls. So that's my thoughts on the 3 signings today for the Bulls. It's not that big of a deal. It's very, very small. But I do want to kind of look at here just how much that this Bulls team has changed. So this is the game 1 against the Atlanta Hawks last season, which was a terrible loss. But starting lineup was Kobe White at point guard. You had Zach LaVine, Patrick Williams, Larry Market, and Wendell Carter Jr. And as you can see, the rest of the bench players right here. This team is basically the same as the 2019-2020 team, except you added Patrick Williams and you added Garrett Temple. It's literally the same team. This is the team that GarPax built, okay? Just keep this in mind. Start of the 2020-2021 season was this team that you're seeing right here. This starting lineup, bunch of young guys, just absolutely young guys, a lot of unproven guys. Patrick Williams is a rookie and playing a lot of minutes, right? And now Karnisovas, after evaluating these guys, which was a smart move by him, he's decided, you know what? We're not keeping a lot of these guys. A lot of these guys are gone. And we're only keeping the guys that we want to, which was Zach LaVine and Kobe White. And a lot of people are like kind of, shocked that Kobe White's kind of even on this team right now. The Bulls kind of made it very clear that Kobe White was valued. Like, even if he doesn't stay around for much longer after this season, and who knows what's going to happen, especially because his contract extension is looming, he may not be on this team next season. But he is still a valuable piece. And the front office does value Kobe White. But obviously the main thing here that we're talking about is that they got rid of everybody else except for Zach LaVine. And they value Zach LaVine, and he is their centerpiece going forward. As maybe not the centerpiece, but he is definitely one of the core pieces moving forward. And they're definitely building around him right now. And as you can see, both Johnsons are not on this list right here. So add in Stanley Johnson and Alize Johnson. But you see Matt Thomas is on this list, but this is basically the team. Completely different. You got Lonzo Ball starting at PG, brought in DeMar DeRozan, you traded for Nikola Vucevic in the middle of the season, Kobe White moves over to that bench, you got Patrick Williams moving to the power forward position, right? You drafted Ayo Dosunmu, you brought in Alex Caruso, you traded for Troy Brown Jr. at the trade deadline, right? Brought in Tony Bradley this offseason. Javonte Green was at the trade deadline as well. You brought in Derrick Jones Jr. with the Larry Marketing deal, and you drafted Marko Simonovic last draft, and now he's over here this year. It's a completely different team. You see what this front office values, which is a lot of length, defensive capabilities, multiple ball handlers, and obviously three-point shooters, right? And this is like a quote-unquote depth chart. This is incorrect because Patrick Williams is playing power forward, DeMar DeRozan is playing small forward, but this is basically the depth chart. You're going to see probably Kobe White play more 2 minutes, Troy Brown Jr. play more 3 minutes. Alex Caruso is going to be the main backup PG, but Tony Bradley is the backup center. Marko Simonovic is going to probably be power forward, and honestly, people kind of forget about him as a power forward option. He might get some minutes this season. I don't expect a lot, though. I do kind of expect to potentially go down to Windy City Bulls and play for the G League team, but he is also an option for power forward, and luckily, he has Tony Bradley next to him, who's a very good paint protector. And that is a very good complementary piece to Marko Simonovic, who I do expect to have a pretty decent role in his future for this team. So, absolutely great job at Karnisovas. I'm very happy with how much he has completely just changed his team, redone it, and now look at this team. And this team should be a playoff team moving forward. So, the Bulls have officially completed their roster with both Johnson signings and Matt Thomas. I'm excited, man. I am very excited for the season to come. And we're very, very close to the first preseason game against Larry Market and his Cleveland Cavaliers. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.